Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Mr. David with us, who's a PhD student. But a brief introduction of David. He has done his integrated bachelor's and master's degree in nanoscience and technology from Karunya University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India. Currently, he is pursuing his doctoral research in nanotechnology and advanced material at Thomas Bata University, Czech Republic. With this brief introduction, I will say thank you so much, David, for taking time out for this conversation.
Hi, yeah, thank you for the introduction. I think it's been fine. Yeah.
So, we always start these conversations with the trademark question that how and when you decided to become a researcher.
I think let like I think research is not for everyone. Let's be clear about that. I was just a very curious person and I always wanted to have a deep understanding of things, and I was always inquisitive about the way things work, and I had a particular interest towards nanoscience, and this kind of drive me in this kind of a career path, I would say.
So the points you brought, it's a great start to say that yes, research is not for everyone. If you have that inquisitiveness with you, that curiosity, that deeper understanding, these are the building blocks which you can then navigate, land up into research and enjoy it more. So, when was the first time when you thought that you really want to pursue a PhD?
I actually, when you're in when I was in my course, like I would say during my bachelor's, I would obviously be in the lab, and you would like meet people who are, like quite the expert in a particular topic in a field. And you can see that it's taken a lot of time for them to absorb all of that knowledge and also have like practical uses for this. And it's then I know they would always say like, David, are you sure you want to do a patient? I was like, no, I'm gonna have to do this. I need to have this kind of confidence in my ability. So yeah, that was I was pretty clear about it.
So can we say that you were always on a reality check that you will make sure to become before, like neither overcome it, never be overconfident, but to be like, okay, if I have this, whatever it takes.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you know how things are generally in like the whole of South Asia. It's very competitive. So you have to have that extra edge in every little aspect of your career or your profile, right? So I felt like, of course, a PhD would be really useful for me down the line. So why not?
Okay. So that being said, before coming or making up your mind that you want to pursue a PhD abroad, uh, what experience regarding research you had during your integrated program?
Okay, like one of the nice things about that whole integrated course was, I think towards the end of your second and third year, they start really showing you like how a research paper looks like and how you should like, work towards, getting good results and trying to, have like a very nice, like a like a selling point for like a paper or article or material. So you'd have this idea on how discovery works and how it's recorded, in the systems, in the databases. So this is how you slowly get an idea. They kind of give you like trainings for each part. Like they show you how to like write papers, like they teach you a bit, and then after that they make you do a lot of reading. And I think towards the end of my master's, I'd been applying for scholarships and extra programs. I was selected. I went to Gujarat. I was selected for something called like a national fusion program, because I had worked there with the professor, and he was like, David, apply for this. You might be able to get it. And I was lucky enough that I had this opportunity. So I spent a few months in Gujarat also collecting data, working with different kind of systems, and a slightly different addition to my normal research, I would say, in nanoscience. I then would be able to like travel up and down between Tamil Nadu and Gujarat, and it would so I understood very fast that okay, I need to get this work done, and I think I had one paper by the time it was the end of my master's. So because they were like, you got to have at least a nice paper down. If not, you're not going to have many PhD opportunities. So I was like, okay, let's get at least one because I saw people were like working towards huge numbers. But I was trying to be honest with my work. I wanted something, something that was really good. So I was targeting like I think a Q1 journal at that time. And my boss said it was a good one, and then we applied for it, and it went through. So yeah, I was quite happy with that.
So, having experienced that research part in your master's for your thesis and coming up with a nice publication, obviously, that's a good part to have. But based on your experience, what you can suggest now to our audience that how they can prepare themselves better if they are planning to pursue a PhD outside, how they should start looking for it.
Okay. If For the most majority of people who are, I think, choosing to do a PhD, I think it should be, first of all, like out of their own kind of curiosity. Doing a PhD just because, their friends are telling you to do it is definitely a no-go. There are a lot of people, I'd like to definitely put that point out because a PhD means you're going to be an expert in a particular field, and only you are going to be in that expert, like it's your field, you're going to work towards it. So if someone is going to want to do research and finish a PhD, it takes, let's say, time, focus, and effort. It's going to take all three, and the money part is like a give and take. So if they're willing to usually give up that part of their career, usually it's like after their masters, they get a job. They are willing to give up this early career a bit for the advantage of having that knowledge and skill, which you should know how to utilize those skills later in life. It's also not good if you just have the PhD and then you're not really able to like progress further. So if they feel like they have a kind of view on this, because on every field it's different, so I would say if you're inquisitive enough and you feel like you can have the energy and you have the competence and you don't want to give up, like you gotta have that attitude of no giving up, then I think you'll be fine.
Having that competence and also the commitment, because it checks you more than just the words or efforts or your passion. It tests your patience in way many more ways. So let's start with the first phase of PhD, when you received a like offer letter, as we say, or the acceptance from Czech Republic. The When you received that letter that Thomas Bata University is offering you a PhD position,
Mhm.
and then what were the preparations you did before landing in Czech Republic?
Oh, yeah, these were a lot. I mean, I was, I did, apply to a few places and I chose Czech because, I felt like that boss, that person was really understanding of the situation and at that time. So I did a lot of, let's say, Googling on his previous work, and I was trying to like, like understand what kind of a group it was. And I kind of had some idea that, okay, they have all these equipment, they're going to have these many people, they're going to be, on this kind of like work kind of structure. Because you can understand because you had experience in a lab before, so it's going to be like this. But then you land in Europe, and then there's like a huge culture difference, and it's still, you catch up to it because you're young. I also like picked up the language a little bit. I was trying to watch videos, I remember, of some level of the Czech language and the Czech culture, how things are, because you have to adapt, you have to live here. So yeah, I think these are the main things I did, apart from all of the administrative documentation and checking up how you have to finish all your processes that you need for the visa and all of these things. So
So, with all that preparation, what you did when you were in India, and then when you really landed in Czech Republic, how well you think you prepared yourself for that transition?
I think I remember I was texting my boss the first time I was like I landed in Vienna. It's like the other city that was nearby from Austria. And I took a bus over, and I Europe has something called like a buddy system.
Mhm.
Now, if it's basically you are kind of given like there's something called a buddy group in every
Mhm.
university. If you're a new person coming in, you're supposed to contact the group and be like, hey, I'm new, I'm coming from so and so. I'm gonna need help to maybe, pick me up at the bus stop or maybe walk me to my dorm or kind of show me around because you're completely lost. You have no idea how about anything is. So that really helped me. Like I still talk to my buddy till now. He's a cool guy. So he picked me up from the bus stop. He showed me how things are. I didn't even have the right kind of currency in my hand, and he helped me with a lot of things at the start. So that was good.
So, buddy system is also one of those things you were aware when, before you landed it in here for sure.
Yes, yes. I because in one of the documents, right, after you get accepted and you get your documents, there's a lot of documents they send you. In the last page of it, there's something like, uh, you know, buddy system. You are like, there's a link, and then I was like, okay, let me check this out. And I was like, oh, this is kind of important. And then I kind of, there's like a website, and there's like a whole team of students. It's like self-organized. I think it's funded by the university and by some European programs. So I registered and then I contacted someone and then I was texting them on WhatsApp and like, hey, I'm gonna be here. And then it was helpful because when you're a little like young and you're like new, you're not completely scared that you won't do it. You'll get there, but you just might do something a little either too safe or too bold, which is both not the best way. You want to know where to be at exactly, so that's fine. It helps reach that optimal kind of point.
I think that balanced one absolutely is correct. And this is for all the audience that if you are looking for PhD positions in Europe and having this information about the buddy system, probably if you can make these networks and connections, there are people who are obviously aware of that if there is an opportunity, if you can make those connections well in before, that probably will help you in designing and developing your statement of research and all the documentation by which you can ensure that you will get offer from that lab. This also is one of the good points which David just mentioned right now. So, David, let's say now you're settled in your lab. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the journey up until now.
Okay.
How did that start and going?
It's going well, I would say. I mean, usually I think at first I know that every country and every place is different. So here they have a system in which they first give you like a bunch of coursework which you need to finish up. And the coursework system is kind of different because here they know you have a main topic of research and you're allowed to go to the labs, after your training and safety, whatever programs, whatever. So as you study, you start building up on your system or whatever you're working towards, right? And you have to kind of learn to balance your studies and your research. So this was like kind of helpful later in life because it kind of helps you balance other things along with your research because there is no fixed exam date in the system. You have to talk to the professors who are in charge of that particular subject, and there was no like a grade system per se because they call it like a doctoral training program. So you have to know some things and you have to know some things. So it's either a pass or a fail, like that's it. So you got to be above a certain bar. If not, the professor is just not happy. So you sometimes some of my other colleagues have not been able to be at the bar and they just get like a repeat. So I've so far not had any repeats. I've just managed to always stick with the bar and above. I've always gone hard with the studies. So after that, you kind of start getting an idea like, okay, you need all these equipment, you need all this data, you start making materials, you start, trialing out. It's already like, the second year, and then you start getting out like slowly some data, and you start understanding how in-depth analysis can be. And yeah, then you slowly start able to like understanding how the whole publication world works in detail. Because you did something in your masters, at least I did, and then but it's a very short time, right? So you're doing it very fast. You don't know how rejections and transfers and all of these internal things work. So you kind of understand how this system works, I'd say, quite well. And then by the time at the end of your PhD, you understand, okay, this is it, and you got to be able to like work towards a project in this ideal, like.
So having this timeline, because in Europe, most of the PhDs are like limited that you have to do it in 3 or 4 years, probably. How much pressure it starts with, because you have a deadline already that by this time you are supposed to complete it.
Like it's like this. Now, now let's say every project they kind of give you like a certain bunch of topics, and they will tell you, okay, this is your topic, David. Internally, you're allowed to choose, like, change a little bit around that topic, but this is your main, PhD topic. So as long as you're being able to hit some of the sub points along those deadlines, it's still reasonably okay. Because most of the time, I think it's like 4 years of funding is the standard for PhD. And your visa, I believe before it used to be extendable for up to 10 or 11 years on a PhD student program. But now I think the maximum visa for PhDs are only up to 8 years. But the funding stops after four. So this becomes an issue for some people, especially if the group is not big enough, then they're not going to be able to like, even employ you as a researcher or a part-time researcher just to keep your life going. So some say I was like manageable, I would say, because I did like a lot of like roundabouts because I needed some equipment. I needed some kind of, opportunities to go to other labs and collaborate with them and come back. Um, but I would say definitely the pressure was a lot different from working in Indian labs. In Indian labs, from my experience, it's quite uh, like it's like a hit or miss, right? It's quite harsh. I feel like you either hit it with a hammer, you get it, and then it's good, or you're like stuck there, like, oh my God, okay, this, and in Europe, it's all that different. It's just that I would say everyone's got their time and they value each one's time in the lab. So when you have an opportunity to do stuff, you'll slowly learn that this is your time to finish it and to get things done, and that's valued in the system. Like if you like disappoint your boss too much, or you're not able to do something or something goes wrong, they're humanly acceptable, but they also know that it's no fun to just be like wasting time also, because there's a lot of holes in which you end up wasting time unknowingly sometimes, and then you realize that this doesn't contribute much to my research, but I guess you'll learn that part as it goes.
So speaking of all these challenges and then lows and feeling stuck in those points, how do you deal with stress? And based on your experience, what you can share with our audience, that how they can prepare themselves for those points where A, nothing is working, B, they feel they are stuck, or C, they are ready to quit.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, everyone's thing is different. So I'm just going to give you like my version here. Obviously, like there's no stead hard fast rule like what I was doing to manage stress. I understood that I need to get this done, and it needs to be finished in this quality and this time. So I just tried really hard, and whenever I couldn't, I would just cut back, take a break. like just do something else. I picked up some other hobbies. I would bike around, I would travel a bit whenever I can. And I've given up on light reading because reading articles and books have taken up most of my time. But you pick up different hobbies to kind of manage, what you can do in that time period. And I would say it's like a good handprint for you to later work with in life. So these are,
Absolutely.
yeah.
PhD is a real training. It's not only a degree, it is a training for the rest of your life too. Like that's what I have been taught and raised with by Dr. T. Adak, my PhD supervisor. So he mentioned that all the time. But having those hobbies which works for you as your support system, we talk about managing the stress in these conversations, that how you have to develop your own support system based on your personality type, because you clearly mentioned this, and which is correct, that how it is different for everyone. Someone can get more connected with nature, someone is better off when they are with their friends having these conversations, enjoying. But one thing which is more important and universal, acknowledging those burnouts, as you mentioned, that when you feel that okay, now this is the time to take a break, that is what is happening in these current uh, scenario all around the world, that not everyone is ready to acknowledge. So what happens is they are just burning out themselves too much, and then
Mhm.
comes a point where they are like, I should quit.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like I've been in a few labs, and yes, this can happen with some students, I would say, because like sometimes people don't understand that that when you do a PhD, your boss or your supervisor, the head of the group, whatever it is, he is well read, he's very knowledgeable, and he might even have a lot of few tricks of the game in the experimental setup and stuff, but he is not doing your research, right? He is helping you, he's guiding you, he's teaching you how to get it done. And this is something that you got to understand, that okay, I'm going to have to need this much effort to get this done. I need this much time. And if someone understands that this is going to take so much effort and time, then they got to like plan for it. Like I usually just put chunks of my time, and I just try to see how I can understand balance. And then okay, I'm going to meet my friends at this time, I'm going to read this, I'm going to study that, I'm going to discuss this. Like it has to be balanced out. It always works. But for those who are not able to do this, are usually the ones I also feel are the ones who don't have a very balanced plan out. They're the ones who are spending most of the time in the lab. They surround themselves with maybe too much for that time being. I don't want to say no one is not smart enough or something. It has nothing to do with that. It's just about how they're balancing out this, because I think everyone has like a tank that needs to fill and refill up. So yeah, I think they'll learn that it's a skill, I guess, maybe.
Absolutely. And having said all of this balancing act, now we do talk about like how Europe is evenly balanced with work and life balance when
Mhm.
it comes to, but not rest of the world is as balanced as Europe. Based on your experience in India and Europe, what will you say that it is up to the person who choose this balance?
I mean, it it's like this. In India, I worked in, let's say, two, three labs. Okay, and most of the labs in India that I've worked with, I've been, I'd say, lucky enough that my bosses there are not exactly the ones who are breathing down your shoulder, or like are not the kind of people who are like, it's the end of the month, I need my data, I need my manuscript. That's like, how can you get that done? Like, like that's very, very, that's just, even if you're planning to get it done, you will not be able to get it done. Like it's just like, an extra load that you're worrying about. Here in Europe, I think people, they do this thing to them since they're a kid. That idea of like like it's a hyper individualistic society. At least it's trending towards that, right? It's not exactly a very groupist kind of society as the east of the world. So everyone who's have learned to have their own self motivation, that self motivation kind of drives them in their own way. So bosses are very much like, hey, can you get this done? When can you get it done? Can you give me some time? They'll deal with you. It's like, you're on the same level and we're working together. You know, that's a very realistic kind of feeling. Unlike, you're like, hey, this, that, and you're like stuck. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then you're like, okay, something happened. And it's kind of hard to deal with, especially when things go wrong. Whereas in this thing, if things go wrong, you're able to at least tell, like, hey, I'm having a problem with this. I'm gonna try and fix it. Maybe if you can help me out or something. Sometimes they may be able to, like help understand and help you out. So that's a very different kind of let's say the whole work ethic and culture.
Absolutely. And having these clear conversations are even more important. So let's say when you started conversing with your current supervisor, like PhD supervisor, okay, the setting up of expectations from each other to be on the same page, as you mentioned, when you started, because this is one of the biggest challenge that once you receive an offer, everything is, the sky is pink, the world is a beautiful place, I'm moving out to this foreign university, it will be fun. What is missed in that time, that you have not set up the expectations from each other. So now everyone is in ether. The supervisor thinks they will get whatever they want, the student thinks they will get whatever they want. But without this clear conversation, setting up the pace for the PhD, especially when you have this timeline, because most of the PhDs, the first 1 or 2 years can be more about completing your courseworks, some other stuff, and trying to make that path, which in last 1 or 2 years, you actually do your experiments, publish those papers before you can defend your thesis, which you are walking towards, already there. But what is the importance of setting that pace up, having these clear expectation goals set up, based on your experience, what you can share with our audiences?
What is, if I may, can you repeat the last part? Like, what is the, like the
Like
main?
on based on your experience,
Mhm.
having this stage set up, like how early they should uh, have this conversation with the PhD supervisor, that what are their expectations, what are their abilities, strengths, weaknesses, and then vice versa too.
Okay. I mean, usually like, as per expectations and like what they expect from you in the group is they usually when they start there in your first year, there's something like they give you like an individual student program, like this is particular just for you. And then they like basically kind of guide you towards how you fix it. But you then kind of think about how you can do it in your own way. And this kind of, they have like, like regular meetings. So this kind of helps in like, easing out a very unrealistic expectations. Like most good groups have like a meeting, like either I've heard some groups have them every week, which I think is a bit much. But I think the best is when you have something, as you're taking steps towards your research, the best is to just always just turn up at your boss's door or send him an email like, hey, can we meet? I want to discuss. Hey, can we meet? This is happening with me. I want to just update you on this. This is the best way to like constantly keep up so that he at least knows, okay, this is what's happening. This is happening. Okay, he's dealing with it. So and they know that okay, towards the end he's going to at least have this many papers, he's going to have this done, he's going to finish his thesis, so this is good you know it's not good to be completely out of touch with your teammates or your colleagues, because then no one can help you out in the last minute. So that's definitely not good. So,
Absolutely. So now this brings us to one more thing, like every student is different in their capacities, capabilities, and obviously having the soft skills, like, how well they can gel up with the research group. So now there are chances that if we leave the students, that if something is not working at the point and the student is not seeking for help and trying to just overcome all those hurdles by themselves, which can be toxic at times. And we have seen those cases when you are not seeking for help, it is going to harm you in a big way. So, for the system, how you will say that as a peer in the lab, where you see that someone is facing that problem or is in that hole, as a peer connect or the responsibility of a research group, it is your responsibility also to seek and to go and talk to them, ask about that, what are they, if they're opening up, obviously it's good for them and also for the research group, because then they can have this expert and the person nourishment being a capacity building or whatnot. But have you ever faced or seen, observed someone like that, or being in yourself in that situation?
I mean, I'm more of the person who's always gonna like, I'll try to get something done. And usually, like every sub point, when I have either something is gone well or I have a problem, I would definitely go up to some of my, supervisors or someone who's ever around who's related to that field and directly ask. Because, I mean, we're in the same team, we're all working, for the same group. So they would usually 90% help. But there have been, I mean, there's two cases, I mean, more than two, but I would split into like two cases where I find that some students, they really take their time, they are to themselves, but then they really, delve in really deep into that particular field or problem or research, and then they come out with a very good level of understanding. But that also takes a serious amount of time to reach that. And some are able to do that. Some of them, they, after a point, they just completely get disconnected and it goes all bonkers, in some cases, which is not good, because a slight nudge in the right direction, like, hey, like, read this paper, hey, read this book, like, check out this article, this might help you understand, like, that would maybe, save a lot of time and effort. So it really depends on the person, I guess, this one. But yeah, this can go both ways. So
It is very important, and having those what we talked about, having those support system also helps, because then there is someone to look for you, and then whenever that slight nudge is required, they are there to give you that, so that you are on track. And one thing which we always feel and face as researchers, that in this competitive environment, when it is almost like slit throat, cutthroat, what people say, that
mhm.
one thing a PhD student or researcher of any stage has to understand, that you are not doing any kind of research which no one has done that, or no one has thought of that. There probably are labs parallelly working on the same topic, and this is one of the biggest disappointments when people say that, oh, my work has been scoped. Wait, sorry, not really. Because what you are doing it with your consciousness, with your understanding. Someone might have a different aspect of that. So never have this comparison, because it's not only for researchers, but in general, comparison is the thief of joy. So if you are going to compare yourself, you cannot be happy about it. So keeping those things well intact and working as a team. Another important point, David, you mentioned, research can never be done alone. It is always a teamwork, even if, and that's why we all have references at the end of the paper, your publication, because you are saying that I have cited these many people, they have done their work, and how I have utilized their work. Either it is just correlating the references or their work, the significance, how they were different, how they were in similar. This is what we always say, that teamwork. But another challenge what we face is the collaborative, the true collaborations. Have you experienced anything, or you want to share that how it helps?
I would, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'd say a good collaborator is someone who kind of understands what you're trying to reach. Because everyone's, like you said, has their own aspect on research, right? And I have this collaborator during my PhD. He was like, they also had a same setup for research, sensing setup, and everything. But they were like working with different things. It wasn't perfectly set up for like everything. I had to make some modifications, and it was kind of hard to get through with the German lab at first, but then I realized that okay, this is it. I'm not gonna like give up. I'm gonna have to just push. I'm gonna have to ask. I'm gonna have to just wait at the doors, or I'm gonna have to wait when that person's free and take them, because there's no one else who's gonna fix it up. There's no one else who's gonna help me or teach me how to fix it up. And these things are sometimes, there's so much levels of complexity. If you want to do it on your own, it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take way more effort than what you expect. So it's obviously super important to have that, that extra help from above, or the guy who's in the team for longer, who's working in that particular field for longer. So that would like really help and accelerate, your research. So,
Absolutely. So that is perfect example that you don't have to reinvent wheel all the time. There are people who actually knows how it works. The best efficient way of using your time and their time is like go seek for help, get the troubleshooting done, and everyone gets benefit out of that. Because an expert, if the expertise is not used enough, is also a loss for the research community, because at one point of time after your PhD, you will be expert for that topic too. So whatever you are gaining now from others' expertise, it will be your chance to pass it on to the next generation and then train them too. So the last question for the this conversation, David, you already mentioned that you knew that you want to do PhD. Weirdly, now the question is, do you have a clear path after your PhD, what you want to do with that degree?
um, I would say almost, yeah. Yeah, it's just that, you're still a foreigner in a foreign land. So there are some kind of holdbacks if you want to play this career path, a bit more risky, or you want to play it with a bit more stability. So I think as technology moves, I think PhDs actually have a lot of places where they can eventually, shift into. Uh, there's a lot of path. I personally would like to I keep talking to some of my colleagues, and we've always been like, we got to start a company, we got to work towards this. We got to do this, man. But, I'm still trying to work on this team formation. I keep visiting, all these cohort groups, founders and stuff. It's going to take a while to get there. I can see the difference in aim and the difference in how they are working. And at the same time, you also got to have like, plans back up, because I feel it's very different from how life was in the last generation. I think their technology moved a lot more slower. So the
Mhm.
jobs were kind of existing for that tech to like just ease out. And then the next technology came in companies. But I think now the competition is like everywhere. So the technology moves. And as things move, you also got to keep up with it. There is no break, and you got to be passionate about being at the edge of at the bleeding edge of this technology, or whichever you're trying to be at. So, and you will find your how to say, like, your niche. When your niche is being called out, then you'll realize that okay, there are only so many people in the world who are going to be good at this, and then you can realize, okay, what are you going to do? How do you want to take your career path? You can either head to
Absolutely.
industry, and the people do other kind of research in there. They work towards products. Academia is not a bad option if you're willing to sacrifice on some other things. There are certain ways I can see people here living a perfectly happy life, also being in academia. But there's a way you have to do it. There's also, there's a lot of give and take, like I said. So I'm just trying to play a little bit more of a stable role for now because you're still a foreigner, and there's a lot of push from my boss on trying to get the PR and finish the language exams and all this process. So then you have a longer time to stick
Absolutely.
along and
Mhm.
then apply for more risky jobs rather than taking out a wider risk and then like have a little bit of a trouble. So
Nice. Now it looks like you have a clear path what you want to do with the degree and then how to achieve it also. It's all well and done there. Then we'll say all the good luck for your future research. And to all the audience, we'll say that if you want to write to David, you can write to him. If you want STEM for Society to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are there to support you. And if research makes you happy, we are there to make it happen. Thank you so much, David, for taking time out and sharing journey with us.
thank you so much as well. It's been great.
To all the audience, stay tuned for another episode of Researchers Celebrity.